You must have gotten that notification.
J Will.
Hip-hop and professional wrestling at its finest. And now, Josiah Williams presents the Wrestle and Flow Show.
Yo, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Josiah Williams, and this is the world premiere, the debut, the first ever episode of the Wrestle and Flow Show. Wrestle and Flow started in August of 2018. It's now July 2020, which is weird to say. I mean, a lot of time has passed. A lot of really cool things have happened in between that time, of course. But I've always wanted to do something outside of just the music, outside of just making remixes or the original tracks that Wrestle and Flow puts out. But I wanted to do something different. And this is an idea that I've had for quite some time, but I felt like this is the right thing to do. Why? I mean, first of all, it helps me to connect a little bit more with my supporters and the people who have, either been there since day one or are starting right now at this very moment. It's always important for me to, show people the real person other than just the dude who raps, you know what I'm saying? But so along with that, I also felt like, I don't know if you guys know this, but Wrestle and Flow costs money to make. I'm paying somebody to mix and master the vocals after I record them. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of time. I'm not somebody who has sponsors and whatnot. Like this is what it is. I make stuff at home and then I put it on YouTube. and that's really it. Other than of course, like merch and other things like that. But no, this is mostly just me out of my pocket making fun music that I really enjoy. And with the Wrestle and Flow Show, I'll be able to do something that isn't exactly that, provide more content a little bit consistently, hopefully, and showing you guys a little bit more of who I am and getting to know me a little bit better. And hopefully on the other side, I'm able to get to know you too through your comments and your feedback and just what you're thinking as you're listening to what I'm presenting. So I'm very excited about this. Speaking of merch, if you speaking of merch, if you're interested in supporting Wrestle and Flow in any way, of course, you can always go to prowrestlingtees.com/wrestleandflow. There's a bunch of cool t-shirt designs from this year, last year, the year before. We got all types of stuff up there. You can get them in short sleeve, long sleeve, men's cut, women's cut. There's all types of stuff that PWTs offers. Same thing with Teespring. If you're looking at this on YouTube, there's always the links underneath the description where you can see different samples of Wrestle and Flow merchandise that you can grab. Outside of t-shirts as well, they've got hoodies, we've got cups, we've got plenty of stuff. So represent Wrestle and Flow however you truly desire to do that. And the most important way to support Wrestle and Flow is obviously to stream on Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music, Tidal, Google Play, all the places where you can listen to music. There's a ton of original Wrestle and Flow content on all of those platforms. So be sure to check those out as well. Okay, so if you've been a fan of Wrestle and Flow for some time, then you've seen kind of the evolution from episode 1 all the way until now. You've seen the remixes, you've seen the original content that shows up, you've seen some of the contests that we've had on Instagram and Twitter, live performances. Like a lot has happened since August of 2018. One of the cool things that obviously happened, there's always that dream that I've had of having an original theme song play for a wrestler as they make their way to the ring. Something that I was able to contribute to and something that I was able to be a part of. That's always been a dream, and that dream did indeed come true in 2019 as formerly Ty Dillinger, currently Shawn Spears. Man, it's one of those moments where I still kind of get goosebumps as I'm thinking about it. Like it's such a crazy thing to really think about, that there is a Wrestle and Flow, a Josiah Williams track being used in the world of professional wrestling. For real. for real. So I want to talk to you guys about that today, of just, from point A all the way till now, just how that happened and what the process was. And I feel like in order to really give you the full scope, we got to go back, actually, I think to 2018 to really explain all this. So let's go back. It is September 2018. I'm on episode like 7 or 8 of Wrestle and Flow. And of course, I already know, at least for episode 10, where I'm going. You know, sometimes you don't know exactly what the plan is, but I know for a fact that episode 10 of Wrestle and Flow will be for Ty Dillinger. This was the year after he debuted in the Royal Rumble, which was a huge moment. Everybody was, hoping that he would. They're screaming out 10 before the countdown is even over. It was a cool moment, and there was a lot of momentum. There was so much going into that. And Ty Dillinger was somebody that I thought was dope, especially with having that reaction from fans all over the world, from, as they say, the WWE universe and the NXT universe specifically. So episode 10 drops. It was fun. A lot of people resonated with it, shared it with him. He shared it himself. We messaged back and forth. Did I just say that right? We messaged back and forth a couple of times, and eventually that leads to Tyler Breeze reaching out. He's like, "Hey man, I like what you do. I like your stuff. We have this gaming channel that we're working on, or that we're doing on Twitch, for the Sweets, which is a collaboration between Tyler Breeze, known as Breezes and the Sweets, Ty Dillinger, known as Dilly, and Baron Corbin, known as Corbs on the Sweets. So the three of them, everybody's kind of doing that right now, like a lot of those gaming channels. I don't know if Up, Up, Down, Down is what started it, but I think the success of Up, Up, Down, Down, millions, literally multi-million followers, encourage other people to really get out there. So I don't know if I can attribute it to that, but for those who don't know, a lot of people have their own gaming channels, and it's dope. But a big part of those channels is like, hey, it's not just us playing games, it's a community, it's everything, and you want to present it the right way. So we need some music, right, to do this. We want to have something that we can intro either during the countdown, right before we start our stream, or maybe just people who want to listen to it outside of that while they're gaming, whatever it is. So one of the episodes of Wrestle and Flow, rather than it being for a tag team or for a solo competitor, I did an original song for them, for their gaming channel, and it was cool. We did a live stream after that to debut it, and it was a fun time. Did a Royal Rumble. There was a lot of stuff going on. Dilly was part of it, and that eventually led to as I'm doing stuff with Lillian Garcia and Chasing Glory, the Chasing Glory podcast. I did a remix for the Iconics. And while I'm talking about Peyton Royce as well, she just launched a brand new YouTube channel this year, 2020, under her name, Cassie Lee. So if you haven't subscribed to that, you'll also hear a Wrestle and Flow original to intro Peyton Royce's, Cassie Lee's new YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe to that as well. So there are a lot of different things that tie into the beginning of me getting to know the man known as Shawn Spears. It's like, I don't even remember the timing, but early 2019 or late 2018, at some point, Ty Dillinger is released from WWE. Shortly after that, I get a message, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "What's up, dude?" He's hitting me up, and he's thinking about some new music, to make a very long story short. And of course, I say yes. Why would I not? I'm at home. I'm in Peoria, Illinois at the time. Still making Wrestle and Flow videos. Still trying to, just get myself out there. So I'm like, yeah, let's do this. And this is a dream. I've always wanted to do this, There were a few other people who I had done intros and either just like general intros for YouTube or whatever, their Facebook channel, their YouTube series. But I wanted to do something that would have a bigger reach as well. There's a guy named Darley Desimo who had a WWE tryout. Man, I don't know when that was, but he reached out. I did a theme song for him. So, you know, I'm finding ways to continue to grow the brand of Wrestle and Flow a little bit. And this was something that I'm absolutely going to do this. So I start asking a lot of questions when I go into this. And this is some general advice that I would say for anyone entering the world of professional wrestling. And even if you're already there and still kind of like building your character up and building who you are, it's like, how do you want to present yourself to the world, right? Because every element of this is important. You have to have a theme song. The video elements are what people call like the Tron. The way that you walk, just how your entrance is. What are you wearing? How are you looking? Like there's every little detail communicates to the audience, both, you know, in the crowd directly and the people who are watching either on TV or online somehow. Like every element of that is important. And that was one of the things that I asked in general of like, okay, so you're stepping out of one situation and going into another. Like, how do you want to present yourself? And he gave you the answers, which helped me as I'm, you know, crafting this song, this track that will represent you, right? And it's the same thing that I think about even just for myself, you know, for whether I'm operating as Josiah Williams or Wrestle and Flow. Like, how am I recording? What's my editing style? How do I present this online? How am I, interacting with people? Why? Why should they subscribe or follow, right? What am I giving them, and why am I giving them a reason to come back? So all of those same things I feel like are kind of similar things to what I asked to get a good idea of what do you want me to say and what do you want me to pitch when I'm talking to different producers, right? So he hit me back with a few things, and the one that stood out to both of us was the resurrection of perfection, right? Because he was the perfect 10 at one point for a very long time. But I loved, man, that stood out immediately. And that originally was going to be the title of the song, The Resurrection of Perfection. What I like about it is that, first of all, it's, you know, you step away from that perfect 10 idea, that concept, right? It makes some room for you to do something different. But I don't know. I love the way that it sounds. And I think there was so much room to create a story and to tell a story with where you're going next and what are you doing next. So I fell in love with that. I'm like, let me operate off of this phrase that you just gave me, the resurrection of perfection. He's like, boom, all right, I trust you, go with it. All right, so there's a guy named Moflo Music who, everybody knows, at least, that has been following me for a while, that my root in music is Christian hip hop. That's my big thing. So there's a guy named Hyper Fenton out of Texas. He works with a guy named Moflo Music. Moflo is who created the original instrumental for this track. I hit him up. I'm like, hey, I have this idea. I gave him a few, pieces of context. We want this genre. We want this style. Da, 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 da. Right. So he hits me back. I rap over it. Originally, it had more of like a rock feel, like rock with rap, with more focus on the guitar, a longer intro. Like Draft 1 was very different than what you hear now when you're listening to the song. I send it to Shawn. He's like, yeah, this is cool. This is good. Let's take it to the next level. And one of the coolest things because this is my favorite collaboration by far, because he was so attentive to every detail. We had at least like 4 or 5 drafts of the song because he could picture it in his head of like, well, when I come out, I'm going to be doing this. And I don't know if this will fit because this piece is too long and this piece is too short. I don't know if this part of the instrumental stands out enough. Like he was really attentive to all of those things as we're talking. And I'm like, man, this is exactly what I wanted. This is perfect. So yeah, he was like, I want this to be grittier. I want more of a punch with this. And that let me know exactly where I was going. So maybe one of these days I'll share with you guys like a piece of what that sounded like in the beginning compared to what it is now, so you can see. But by draft, like 4 or 5, something like that, I'm like, all right, this is the one. this is gonna be it. We switched it from, you know, that rock track to more of like a like trap metal. I don't know if metal is the right word, but it definitely has more of a hip hop and rap bass than what it did originally. We shortened the intro, we fattened up the bass a little bit. Like we really went there to give him exactly what he was looking for, and it was the right call. And I think, you know, the suggestions that I made on my end as well, like combining both of these things, it made it perfect. And I know it's funny because we're trying to get away from the word perfect, but like, I don't know, man, it made it sound so good. And I'm like, I didn't know where he was going with his, you know, his character necessarily. I didn't know if he was going to be face, heel. I didn't know any of that. But I knew that this was going to be something that people could resonate with. And that was the most important thing for me. So as I look back on it now, though, I still go back and forth. Because on one hand, I wanted to give him more lyrics. And we talked about that a little bit. And I'm like, man, do I do a second verse or a third verse, or do I extend the hook? There's so much, because it's just that section. And I, you know, depending on who it is, there are some theme songs that are just looped that I'm like, you could have done a little bit more with this. So here I am in a situation where it's essentially a loop. And I'm like, for some reason, this really works. The more I listen to it, I don't know, it stood out as like this is all you need. And then you go out there and you communicate the rest. I do say that does not work with everybody, in my opinion. There are some songs that I believe should have been given a second and or third verse and should not just be looped in general. But this is one of the ones that I had to, at least depending on the day, disagree with. I'm like, I really feel like this is one that speaks for itself. And then you go out there and communicate the rest, whether it's through the entrance, in the match, in a promo, however you decide to do it. The song speaks for itself. And it's cool. It is really cool to sit back and listen to it now. Of course, we can, you know, add more lyrics. Maybe there's a remix down the road or something. Like, we could do that. But there's a reason why so many people, when they heard it, you know, they didn't even think like, oh, this is just another track that's looped or whatever. They're like, man, this fits you for some reason. And this sounds really, really, really good. Which I was glad. And I'm like, yes, that means that I have accomplished something. But yeah, and then we ended up changing the title from Resurrection of Perfection to just Perfection, which also is like, okay, that makes sense. This is cool. You're making a statement of like, whatever. I'm not even going to go into that, but the changing the title was really cool. So that's early 2019. We finally met at WrestleMania, whatever, you know, I don't even remember the numbers. Whatever WrestleMania was in 2019, in New York, Brooklyn, something like that, Jersey, wherever we were. I was walking to find, I think, Pat McAfee or Lillian Garcia or somebody. I don't know who I was looking for, but I ran into it and I'm like, oh man, what's up? How you doing? You know, talked about the theme song a little bit. It was a really, really, really cool moment, just to see this all come full circle, which, by the way, that was also my first ever WrestleMania. So most people at that point, other than the folks at NXT who I met a couple months earlier, you know, I'm in this position where I'm meeting people for the very first time, and experiencing this event for the very first time. So it was all very cool, very cool. After that, you know, he starts to use it on the independent scene a little bit, and then I am in either Illinois or Milwaukee, Wisconsin, finishing up a tour for the album that I released in 2018 called The True Gold. You know, just a couple of stops and final performances. And I don't remember where I was, but my phone starts blowing up. I'm like, what is happening? I know I didn't do anything wrong. What is, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, I didn't do anything. What is happening? So, you know, he debuted in AEW. I'm like, oh, that's interesting, right? Because I've always felt like this as a collaborator. Like if I'm doing a theme song or, you know, whatever it is, I don't think it's my business unless you offer it for me to ask you like, oh, so, you know, hey, where you going? What you doing? Like, that's not, I don't think that's my, I don't know. That's not my place. I don't feel like that's necessary for me. So I didn't ask. I'm like, hey, you know, you need a theme song? Cool. You're paying for it? Cool. Like, that's not really any of my business. So I had no idea where he was going with it. So it was very, very interesting to hear that happen, especially because I didn't know. Later that night, I think I finally went to go watch it, and I guarantee I probably watched it like 3 or 4 times in a row of like, yo, this is real. This is an actual situation. Like, someone is using a Wrestle and Flow original theme song as their theme on television. Like, that does not happen every day, bro. Like, this is crazy. This is really cool. So like, I had to take that moment to sit in it and to understand what it meant, and yeah, to enjoy it, you know. Yeah, a lot of people were wondering like, hey man, is this Wrestle and Flow? Is this Josiah? How did that happen? How's this, you know, whatever. And then he finally got to the point where he was able to, we're not able to, but like decided to release it so people can download it and stream it and whatnot. It was very cool to see all that. I remember going back to work, and I think Big E was the first person to talk to me. It's like, yo, was that you? I was like, yeah. It was cool. It was very cool. Like, just, you know, because that's when you know that you get to a point of like, people are recognizing just your voice by the, yeah. Like, before you even say who it is, before, you know, anything, like, they just recognize the voice. And that was cool. You know, I've always, you know, told myself and been taught, like, you know, you're humble, you do what you have to do, you work hard, stay out of the way. But one of the things that I've struggled with, and, you know, this is in hip hop in general, like, if you're a singer, I feel like it's easier for you to have your own distinct sound. But as a rapper, that's not that easy, like, because we listen to, you know, other rappers and how they deliver certain lines, and like, it's not easy to necessarily craft your own style and have your own sound. And that's something that I struggled with for a very long time. Like, do I have my own style? Do I have my own sound? Will people recognize the voice when they hear something for the first time? So that meant a lot of like, man, people, I didn't say that it was me. No one said that it was me, but that voice in that moment meant something. Yeah, and to this day, I'm like, I always remember that. So as I'm crafting songs and as I'm working on, you know, theme songs or remixes or originals, whatever it is, I'm like, I want to make sure, unless there's an intent behind it, like, for example, with the what's a good one? The Jay White remix, or the Carl Anderson and Lou Gallows remix, like, those are specific to the instrumental that I use. So of course I'm going to use the flow from the originator, you know, in that sense, Drake or Machine Gun Kelly. But well, let me say this, because even within that, you know, I'm not delivering their lyrics. I'm putting my twist on it. But yeah, for the other things, I want to make sure that it does sound like that's a Wrestle and Flow track. Oh, that's a Josiah Williams song. Because that's important. You want to have your own style. You want to have your own thing that doesn't reflect everyone else. Yeah, very thankful for that moment, and very thankful for the people who immediately recognized it, and you know, for the people who offered their feedback. It was very, very, very cool. Yeah, that's the story. Hopefully there's many more theme songs down the road. Still haven't done one for WWE yet, but I would love to. We'll see if that actually happens one day. Who knows? There's a guy named Denzel in NXT, one of my favorite people. If you've gone to any of the shows in Florida, or if you, even some of the ones that I've traveled, you might have seen him once or twice. I think he's definitely been on NXT and maybe even on Raw or SmackDown once or twice. I don't know, but he would always joke about like getting the Wrestle and Flow remix. But one of the one of the things that he would always say is like, no, for real though, like I wanna earn it. I don't want it just because like I know you can ask for it. He's like, no, I actually one day I want you to want to rap about me. I got to the point where obviously Shawn Spears is like, hey, I like your work. I like what you do. I want to work with you on this. I want to get to that point where WWE is like, hey, we like what you do. Let's work together on something. So I'm going to say that same thing, like the way that Denzel says it. Like, I want to earn this. I want you to see it in me that I'm ready for the opportunity. So we'll see if it happens. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But I'm gonna keep pushing for that to happen one of these days. But until then, play it loud.
Stepping out the box and into the zone. This is the Wrestle and Flow Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to the first episode of the Wrestle and Flow Show. As always, I appreciate your feedback, so leave your comments, ask some questions. What things do you want to hear about? I'll listen to suggestions as well. Of course, no promises, but I'm always listening and always watching because I definitely appreciate you and your support. As always, check out Wrestle and Flow on Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music, all those. Check out Pro Wrestling Tees and Teespring. You can also check out Cameo and Celeb VM, the video services, if you want a special message, something like a happy birthday or congratulating you on graduation or just some advice, whatever you want. I mean, it's Cameo, right? You can do whatever you want. Check out J Will on Cameo under Josiah Williams. So, until next time, my name is Josiah Williams. Wrestle, flow, 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 yeah.